Assalamu alaikum, and greetings to all. This is the Majlis for the Iraq case studies. On my right, we have Anisa Mehdi, president of the Abraham Path Initiative, an NGO based in the US. We have Alexandra, the regional director, Middle East, North Africa for World Monuments Fund. And we have Mr. Baptiste Violi, coordinator for program development, La Guilde. And today we'll be speaking about our own experiences, challenges, and perhaps going forward, what can we do together, speaking together, and also taking questions from the audience. I regret that Dr. Laith, who was supposed to moderate this session, has had to deal with some things with the visit of the director of UNESCO to Iraq. So he will not be joining us. I would like to start first towards my right here. And the questions are, Anisa, is to really speak about your experiences in Iraq and lessons learned.
Thank you for this wide opening. May you learn from the lessons of me being the guinea pig. Good afternoon. It's really very nice to be up here in this auspicious place with all of you out there, and I'm delighted to be part of this conference. My first actual experience in Iraq was a long time ago when I went to meet my grandmother in Baghdad. And it's the only time I've actually been in Iraq, but it left a very lasting impression, you may imagine. Assalamu alaikum. And I remember meeting this tiny woman who covered herself in her abaya, and because I met her in her home, I and my father were the only people in my family who ever got to see her face. Because when we went out of the house so she could meet my mother, a beautiful blonde, blue-eyed Canadian, and my two sisters, she always had her face covered with just one eye showing. She rolled her own cigarettes, and she colored her hair red with henna. This is maybe TMI, but that's my first experience in Iraq. It left a lasting impression. Now, as president of the Abraham Path Initiative, we are not only developing places in the Middle East, Southwest Asia, where people can walk on the ground, and walking trails we've created so you may have your own experience of the region and its hospitality, not its hostility, as the news media would like you to think. We are doing cultural heritage preservation in Nineveh. And these are two projects in minority communities, one in the Syriac Christian community in the city of Karakosh, Baghdad, where the Pope went in 2001. And the second one is in Shingal, or Sinjar, in the Yazidi community. Now, both of these communities were absolutely ravaged by ISIS in 2014. And we're looking at, I'll start with the Syriac project, we're looking at the cultural, intangible cultural heritage, which is actually a tangible thing. It's their embroidery traditions, the traditions of men and women to make beautiful ceremonial dresses called shawls. And we began this work in 2016, long before we knew of the great ALIPH. Our fellow went to Karakosh to record and photograph the work the women had done. She's now writing a book on this called Our Stories, What We Remember Will Be Told. I had this all written down, but you changed the order of things. Not your fault. My brain isn't working. Anyway, I'll tell you what the story's name is in a moment. Stephanie Saldana turned this project over to us. We are now working with a cinematographer because my background is in television journalism, so cinematography is a really good way for us to tell these stories in people's own voices, which is essential. Our cinematographer is a brilliant movie maker, great eye, wonderful with audio. His mother was an embroiderer, so I thought he'd be the perfect candidate. And the challenge is he has no time for this project. So my project manager is knocking on his door every day, trying to get his attention, which means I am knocking on Maya's door and Adonis's door and our colleagues at ALIPH saying, it's coming slowly, slowly, shway, shway, poco, poco. So I'm going to go there next month to Mosul, and it'll be my next live experience in Iraq after 1976, and have a chance to work directly with this person. So one of the challenges I face is the distance, is the remoteness. You know, working from New Jersey on a project in Karakosh. And I have no doubt that with the skills this man has, we are going to come up with some beautiful cinematography and beautiful stories. What we have learned generally is that before ISIS, the embroidery was geometric, as the embroidery is in so many parts of this planet, and also floral and celebratory designs, symbolic of what's around in life when life is good. After ISIS, the designs have begun to be narratives of the city as it was before it was destroyed. Women are embroidering the streets of their city with the mosques and the churches. They're embroidering the celebrations of weddings with musicians and priests and brides and grooms. So these are becoming a living library of a life that's lost, and the hope that some of that will return. It's very moving for me. I'll be brief again about our Yazidi project. Stephanie Saldana also began this work for us. And the Yazidis, I was very grateful. I think someone on the previous panel mentioned the Yazidis as a minority community. You've all heard about what happened in 2014. There are many people still missing, thousands killed. What we are looking at is one aspect of the Yazidi religious tradition, and this is called khair. Now, in Arabic, khair means goodness, in a sense. Is that how you would translate good, fine? So this is a Yazidi tradition that has to do with what in Islam we would call zakat, or in Christianity, tithing. You know, it is where you give of yourself for God. And there's a Yazidi interpretation of this as well. How do you take something that's that intangible and make it known, especially outside of a Yazidi community? What we've discovered is in their diaspora, many of the Yazidis have also forgotten what khair is and how to practice it. This is the damage, the challenge that comes from conflict and exile and fleeing your home, is you lose track of what is in your heart and what is in your tradition. So the idea that we are doing here, and our project there is directed by a Benedictine nun who lives in Germany, Sister Macrina Finlay. And she's a brilliant woman, and she runs the asylum program for Yazidis at her monastery, so she speaks Kurmanji fluently. What she is doing with our colleagues there is she identified a young man and his sister who are rediscovering their traditions through interviewing elders and through asking their parents and looking at their younger brothers and sisters. He is the cinematographer who has a brilliant eye and a brilliant sense of sound. And he's just learning that now, so an added benefit, added value from our intervention is this young man now has a promising career in front of himself. And so he and his sister are narrating this in Kurmanji, when we're gonna have English subtitles, but it is their experience that is coming through in the film. And they're talking to each other. Do you remember when this? What do you think that meant? And then they go and ask the elder of their community, how does that khair express itself during the feast day? How does it express itself at our funerals, at our weddings? And so the audience will begin to learn about khair along with our characters.
Thank you, Anisa, for that. The importance of intangible cultural heritage and interpersonal relationships as a core part of our work. Thank you. We move now to Alexandra of World Monuments Fund. If you can briefly, in summary form, speak about the projects you're working on and any lessons learned.
Well, War Monuments Fund started to work in Iraq in 2004, so just after the invasion. So we started working with the training on the capacity building of the State Board of Antiquities and Heritage. But then from there, starting from the training, we start also to go into conservation, in site management, in accompanying the State Board of Antiquities in learning how to prepare site management plans. So this was the case of Babylon. Then conservation projects. But then we start really to understand that it was not only these were not only elements important to tackle heritage in Iraq. So it was also we started working in Amedi, because we thought that it was important also to protect small centers that were out of the big routes. And Amedi is an important site for the Iraqis and Kurdish and Arabs and Kurdish. And so it was important also to protect this small center. And we wanted to use Amedi as a small example for preparing protection guidelines. It could be a small example for protecting the small center around Iraq, northern Iraq and southern Iraq. So, and then now we are working on a major project that is the Mosul Cultural Museum. So, we pass from Babylon, which is, Babylonian site, and to a modernist building. So really we would like to, in Iraq, as War Monuments Fund, we would like really to touch different elements of the heritage of Iraq, and especially working in Amedi and now in Mosul, we work a lot with the local communities. I'm not saying that in Babylon we don't do that, but see, that one is more a conservation project, but in Amedi we could work more with the local community, and we are doing this one also in Mosul. We discussed recently also with Mosul Heritage, saying that this is a very important part of the project. And working also for the community, we rebuild a shrine in Sinjar, Mamra Shan. So also this one was really an important project, because really was giving back to the community of Sinjar. We know that only little part of the community went back to Sinjar, but they really wanted this building. It was an exercise of conservation, but then it became more an exercise of rebuilding the community through their religious places. And so these are the way that we work. Lesson learned, challenges a lot in all these years. And as Alessandra myself, I worked in Iraq even before War Monuments Fund, so I have a long experience in the country. So we saw many challenges in all these years, but nothing that is not possible to, how do you say in English, to pass over and to surmount. And lesson learned, also there are many in all these years, and there is always lesson to learn every time from the work that we do, from talking with the people, to speaking with the other colleagues. One of the important things that I think is to discuss with the other colleagues, to see what they are doing, opportunities of exchanges, of collaboration, or in these years all of this happened, and mixing groups of different foreigners working in the country or locals working in the country and connecting them together. So this one has been something that we wanted to do. So many of these have been lessons learned altogether, and there are still more to come, I think.
Thank you, Alexandra. Now we move on to Baptiste of La Guilde, and he'll be speaking about his projects in northern Iraq.
Yeah, thank you. I work for La Guilde, a French NGO that exists since 1967. We are involved in culture and heritage, and we were present in Iraq and Syria 10 years ago, and we quickly understood that heritage protection was going to be a huge challenge. This is where we met ALIPH, which was very lucky that at this point they had this vision, they understood. And actually our first project was not in Iraq, but was in northeast Syria, in Raqqa, which had been the capital of ISIS in Syria. And we rehabilitated the archaeological museum of Raqqa, which had been highly destroyed and looted. They had a collection of around 8,000 objects. Only 1,000 is remaining. So we rehabilitated the building, and now we are, thanks to ALIPH, again, we are in implementing of preventive conservation on the object phase, and we hope, hopefully, inshallah, before the end of this year, to organize a small exhibition so that the community, children and school can go back to this place of memory. while in Iraq, we are now rehabilitating a mosque in the old city of Mosul. It's called Al-Masfi, and it's quite a small mosque near the river, but it has a significant symbolic importance for the people, because even though it's a quite typical Ottoman mosque from the beginning of 18th century, it's on the site of the oldest mosque of Mosul, dates back to 16 Hijr, with the minaret that it seems dates back to the 12th century from the Atabek time. So it has a huge importance for the people. So we are doing this through the support of ALIPH. Of course, many challenges in the context of Mosul. We are working closely with local authorities, of course the SBH, Ministry of Culture. The Sunni Waqf is the owner and beneficiary of the project. Maybe something important to say is that we created a scientific committee in order to follow up on this project. So in the scientific committee, there is of course ALIPH, their scientific director, but also the École de Chaillot, which is like the most important heritage architect school in France. Actually, the architect that designed the project, trying always like to respect all the tradition of Mosul, like traditional techniques and traditional forms of Mosul. So there is the École de Chaillot, there is also the ENP, stands for like Institut National du Patrimoine, who trains mostly curators and restorers in France. So there is the scientific committee with also Dr. Mounir Bouchenaki and Professor Alistair Norsage in the future. This has been something very important. What maybe I can say also, of course, to bear in mind, is that in Mosul we are not working alone. We are part of like a bigger project of ALIPH called Mosaic Project. So it's not only one mosque; it's actually two mosques and two churches. One other mosque is being rehabilitated by an Italian NGO called Antiquities. Two churches are being rehabilitated by a French NGO called L'Œuvre d'Orient, and cooperation between us has been very important. In a workshop just 1 hour before this meeting, someone was saying, how do you manage projects when you have different operators doing something in the same city? And this is the case in Mosul. I don't know how many projects you have in Mosul, but for example, for us, sometimes cooperation is just a word and a wish and a nice word, but we don't really implement it. In this kind of context, as we have so many challenges, cooperation is needed. I just say one example for like the mosque and for many like religious sites in Mosul, demining. Demining was a big challenges, and cooperating exchanges with all the other operators have been very useful. In the case of our mosque, Al-Masfi, we finally demined in May of last year. So now we are rehabilitating. Hopefully at the end of this year or beginning of next year, it will be complete, and we'll be able to give back to the community a functional and I hope beautiful mosque, but it's definitely a project with a lot of challenges.
Thank you, Baptiste. Now we turn to Kaifi, of the Director of Antiquities and Heritage of the Kurdistan region of Iraq. بدأت تاخذ حريتك بالكلام يعني ايه عن يعني شغلك حاليا تفضل بس اخذها
مساء الخير الحاضرين. اولا نبارك يوم تأسيس أليف، وأني أريد أتعرف على أقليم كردستان بأنه أقليم خاص يعني ضمن دولة العراق بعد سقوط النظام السابق وكتابة الدستور العراقي. انفصلت بشكل قانوني أقليم كردستان ذات حكومة محلية وتابعة للحكومة المركزية، وهناك بعض بحسب الدستور العراقي هناك بعض السلطات مشتركة بين الطرفين. وإن الآثار والتراث في إقليم كردستان باعتباره جزء من حضارة وادي الرافدين، يعني منطقة حضارية وتراثية مهمة، ويحتوي على مواقع أثرية وتراثية كبيرة، عدد كبير. وخلال السنوات السابقة ولحد الآن نحن مستمرين في إجراء المسوحات الأثرية لتحديد وتوثيق وتسجيل المواقع الأثرية في المنطقة، حيث جرينا لحد الآن بالتعاون مع البعثات الأجنبية ودوائرنا الآثارية في إقليم كردستان حوالي 5800 موقع أثري، وهذا بالنسبة 40% لأرض إقليم كردستان التي تم المسح فيها. ويجري التنقيبات الأثرية في عدة المواقع، سواء كان بالمشاركة مع البعثات الأجنبية من دول أوروبية وأمريكية وحتى يابان ودول أخرى، وأيضا يعني إجراء الصيانة والترميم والحفاظ على الأبنية التراثية والقلاع والجسور. يأتي خاصة من قبل دوائرنا والمختصين الآثاريين في إقليم كردستان. وتطورت إقليم كردستان في الآونة الأخيرة، وخاصة بسبب الوضع الأمني المستقر في إقليم كردستان مقارنة بالمناطق الأخرى في العراق، مع الأسف يعني في الآونة السابقة. والآن يعني الوضع في كافة أنحاء العراق بشكل جيد، وخاصة في إقليم كردستان، مما ساعدت على وجود البعثات الأجنبية وتوجههم إلى إقليم كردستان وتعامل سلطات الإقليم، سواء كان من ناحية دخولهم ومن ناحية دوائر الآثار بشكل جيد، ومن خلال تشريع قانون جديد لإدارة وحماية الآثار والتراث في إقليم كردستان. لأنه سابقا نحن عملنا بالقانون العراقي، والقانون العراقي السابق يعني بها بعض الثغرات لم يكن بشكل يواجه الواقع. لذلك قرر برلمان إقليم كردستان وعلى اقتراحات الآثاريين والمختصين في هذا المجال بتشريع قانون، حيث هذا القانون وضع قواعد قانونية صارمة لكل من يتجاوز عن الآثار والتراث، وأيضا تحديد المسؤوليات لكافة الأطراف. ونحن مستمرين في الصيانة والمسح الآثاري والتنقيبات وتطوير العلاقات بيننا وبين المجتمع الدولي. وأيضا في الآونة الأخيرة هناك غياب للمنظمات مدنية NGO، وبعد اتصالنا مع دائرة المنظمات NGO في حكومة إقليم كردستان، حيث ساعدت في تأسيس المنظمات ذات العلاقة في هذا المجال، في مجال الحماية وحماية الآثار والتراث ومساعدة السلطات الإدارية في إقليم كردستان. وهناك في إقليم كردستان ممكن يعني أغلبيتهم يعني ما تعرفون قبل 91 الوزع في إقليم كردستان شلون، يعني حيث دمرت أكثر من 4000 قرية، وأجريت عمليات الأنفال ضد الناس المدنيين التي قامت بها النظام السابق، وهذا أدت إلى تفكيك وخراب البنية التحتية الثقافية والتراثية، حيث 4000 قرية ومدن صغيرة خلت ثغرة كبيرة في مجال الثقافة والتراث، وأدت إلى عبء كثير على حكومة إقليم كردستان. وهناك دعم متوازع من قبل المنظمات المانحة لم يكن بشكل كافي، وأن نبارك الإخوان يعني خاصة في الآونة الأخيرة بحرب داعش. هناك ألف يعني صعدت المناطق المتضررة وخاصة في منطقة الموصل، ونحن نطلب أيضا يعني الدعم أكثر لأقليم كردستان، لأنه هناك الأحياء السكنية والمواقع التراثية كلها يعني في زمن بعيد في وضع غير جيد، وكل هذا محتاج إلى المساعدة والتعاون في كافة المجالات المادية، وأيضا في مجال التريننج يعني للآثاريين والموظفين في مجال الآثار والتراث.
Shukran, Ustad Kaifi. Thank you to our panelists. I'd like to spice things up a bit and take questions from the audience. I also have a few things to say just quickly. Among us here is a wealth, a rich body of experience from all the projects from Takasra, from Lahwar, from the north to the south. We have a lot of experience here, Iraqi Kurdistan. And so we would like to take a few questions, maybe 3 or 4 questions at once. You can direct them to our panelists, or they could be general questions. And David here would assist us with that. And just quickly on this topic, we understand the challenges Iraq faces as Iraqis and those who are working in Iraq. They are enormous. We work with a civil society, a society that has been degraded by many decades, a state that is in the process of rebuilding itself. If any of your questions could also be within that framework, that would be very important to understand the real challenges Iraq faces and how you, in terms of your experiences, and feel free to just briefly speak about your own experiences. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Daniele Morandi, University of Udine, Italy. Well, I am an archaeologist working in northern Iraq, in the Kurdistan region of Iraq, and we're carrying out survey, archaeological excavations, and particularly protection, conservation, and enhancement of this tremendous cultural heritage which is located in the Duhok province, and I'm talking specifically about this huge irrigation system built by the Assyrian king Sennacherib in the early 7th century BC, with hundreds of kilometers of canals, rock reliefs, the first stone aqueducts in history, and so on. When we started this work, we were struck particularly by the lack of awareness that the people, after decades of instability, economic crisis, socio-political strife in the region, have about their own cultural heritage. So my question is more a general remark and a question which is addressing the whole panel, is how do your organization tackle this issue of the dissemination of knowledge about their cultural heritage in this mixed, ethnically and culturally and religiously mixed region, which is Kurdistan, where there are not only Kurdish communities, there are Yazidi communities, as we all know, Assyrian communities, Turkoman, Shebak. And the point is that each of these communities has its own specific perception of the cultural heritage existing in their environs. And normally they do not have knowledge even of the existence of the most prominent.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Very clear. We'll take 2 or 3 more questions. On our left here. And if you can make it very brief so we can take as many questions as possible.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I will try. Good evening. Thank you for your speech. My name is Pascal Magessian. I am the founder of I'm the project manager of a French organization named Mesopotamia. We are working in Iraq with a team in Iraq, and we are working on the field of education of heritage in Iraq with Iraqi people, and the restoration in Iraq too, in Karakosh, for example, and in Bazani, for example, with the community Yazidi. We have a new project. Dr. Leif knows this project. We have a new project now named Heritage Truck. It's a truck that we are building now, and this truck will travel all over Iraq so as to share the heritage of Iraqi people, the heritage of the communities, Yazidis and Christian communities, especially for them because they have been injured by Daesh. So this heritage truck will be ready at the end of this year, and we will be very happy to work with all of you. For example, for textile and broderies from Karakosh, it is very important to share this know-how. And in this truck, we will have two main things. First of all, training programs about heritage and Iraqi heritage, and sensitive practice to heritage through different items. And we will have like professors which will share this know-how. So we will be happy to work with all of you. And I want to say just one thing more. It is very important for Iraqi people, this work that we all do, because they are very proud. They are very proud of their own heritage. And it is important to help them to be proud of this history, of what they did since thousands of years for the history, and it is very important to share their willingness to grow up and to restore this heritage, tangible and intangible heritage.
Thank you. Are there any more questions on education? Yeah, go ahead.
مساء الخير. أيوب ذنون من الموصل، مؤسسة تراث الموصل. في الحقيقة يعني من المؤسف أن يقول هناك مثل يقول لا نعرف قيمة الشيء إلا نفقده، وفي العراق وفي الموصل حدث ذلك أنه لم نعرف قيمة تراثنا وحضارتنا كحتى مجتمع محلي إلا بعدما فقدناها بسبب الحرب أو بسبب الإهمال من الجهات الحكومية. هناك العديد قد يصل إلى مئات المشاريع في العراق، وفي الموصل العديد من المشاريع التي تعمل لإعادة إعمار المواقع التاريخية، وفي بعض الأحيان تأهيل وإلى ما هنالك. أنا نقطتين يعني أحاول أركز عليها. النقطة الأولى لمؤسسة أليف وللجهات العاملة. هناك العديد من المواقع يتم إعمارها، لكن لا يتم يعني إشراك المجتمع. على الأقل مثلا ترميم جامع المصفي الذي ذكره الأستاذ هو في منطقة الآن تقريبا أغلبها مدمر، هي منطقة الإقليعات. فمن المفترض أن يكون هناك على الأقل فرد 20 بيت يتم إعادة ترميمهم حول هذا الجامع لكي يعود المجتمع ويحس بأهمية هذا الجامع الذي يتجاوز عمره 1400 سنة. هذا من ناحية حتى إشراك المجتمع، وبالناحية الثانية هو توعية المجتمع بأهمية الحفاظ على هذا الإرث التاريخي للمدن أو الحضارات. إذا ما كان هناك توعية سيتم فيما بعد إعادة إهمال أو دمار هذه المواقع. شكرا جزيلا.
شكرا.
السلام عليكم، أنا رعد الأسدي، منظمة الشبايش للسياحة البيئية. سؤالي لكل الدونر اللي يعملون بالعراق، ما هو معيار توزيع المشاريع؟ للأسف تعرفون منطقة الأهوار تعاني مشاكل عديدة، ومنها مشاكل الجفاف والتغيرات المناخية، وهناك مشاكل يطول الحديث عنها والقائمة تطول. لحد الآن كل الحاضرين ما شفت ولا منظمة منفذة أي مشروع داخل منطقة الأهوار للأسف، ونشهد هجرة عدد كبير من سكان الأهوار، بالإضافة إلى تدمير جزء كبير جدا من تراث الأهوار. يعني أتمنى من منظمات الدولية والمنظمات العاملة بالعراق أن تضع جزء من حساباتها وجزء من مشاريعها في مناطق الأهوار، كون لها أسبقية وهناك مشاكل كبيرة في مناطق الأهوار. شكرا.
شكرا أستاذ رعد. شكرا جزيلا. Are there any other questions on education? Go ahead. Just, yeah, the last question and then we'll take another round if we can answer them.
Hello, Zakaria Hafar, I'm project manager for Iraq at the National Library of France. We're all aware of the challenges in the context, but I would like to ask the panelists if there are any positive tendencies or improvements over the past 5-10 years that you've seen through your projects that you would like us as international partners to see both noticed and improved in the way we work.
Thank you, Zakaria. Yeah. Thank you very much. That's one of the last questions we'll ask. I'm going to quickly summarize the questions that were asked. One was on FIDA, it was on education, it was in the Hawk, and it was relating to the decimation of knowledge and how we can strengthen our knowledge networks at a grassroots level so people can actually re-engage with their cultural heritage. And I think that question was repeated, and I think it's an important question. If we can speak about that and also the need for raising awareness, which is often something on the top of the heritage agenda. We can start with Benedict on the, Baptiste. Sorry, if we can start with you on just the need to raise awareness. And there was a specific question for you actually.
Yeah, maybe first I will answer to question 3 because Al-Masfi Mosque was mentioned directly. And it's true, it's a very, thank you for raising this, this concern because it's a very important issue. For example, it's too bad I don't have any picture to show, but for example, Al-Masfi Mosque is very close to the river in Mosul, and around, it's an area that have been heavily shelled during the 2017 battle. So it's true that all around the mosque, many like private houses have been totally destroyed. So in the mosque project, of course, when we designed the plans, we've been exchanging a lot with the Sunni Waqf, but also the community, with the imam, and many workers that will work on the site are from this neighbor. But of course, we know for sure that when the mosque will be finished, the community will get back because it's a very important mosque for them. Every time we are there, I'm there for example. People just stop in the road and say, when is this mosque opening again? Because for them it's important. So we're sure that the community will come back. But the private houses that have been destroyed, I don't know how large is the area. We are a French NGO, an operator, and we, for this aspect, I think we cannot, for example, talk to ALIPH, but it's true, you're right in saying this, that we should talk with the governor and the local authorities to see if at some point they can put priority also on this area of the old town of Mosul, because it will be important that once the mosque is opened again, private houses are also rehabilitated. So I don't know which actors could be the ones, UNDP or others, so that people can go back and live again in the old Mosul, which is already a trend that we see. But still, in some areas, it's still...
The question on raising awareness, if you could just address that in terms of producing knowledge and sort of enticing, incentivizing local communities to re-engage in local heritage, which was one of the recurrent questions.
Maybe you just can say one word. Actually, it seemed that question 2 was an answer to question 1 with the heritage truck from Mesopotamia. But it's definitely of primary importance. Maybe we are not, as an NGO, the first actor responsible or that should be involved in this, but we are. And what I can see that there are many like visible big projects, Al-Nouri, the ALIPH projects, everything. But there is another layer where civil society is very active. I can compare it sometimes to Raqqa. Of course, Mosul is a very big city, but you can see so many, especially youth. If you go to Mosul and now you visit like Mosul Heritage House, it opened maybe 6 months ago. It's amazing. All these youth, young people, some of them studied at the university heritage, some of them did not, but they are, again, it seemed passionate about heritage and to share their heritage with their friends, with their family. You see many tourists, again, coming back to Mosul from many European countries, and they go see this house. So I think there are good things going on.
You need to engage with the knowledge truck, an important vehicle for your work. Go ahead, Alessandra.
Yes, I follow Baptiste in some of these answers because I think one of the important things is going to do education in the school. We are creating a children interpretation center at the Erbil Citadel, so it will be dedicated to the children so that they learn the history of the citadel. And when we go in the school to understand which is their curriculum, the history is not too much developed. So probably one of the elements to raise awareness is this one, so that dissemination starts not only from project made here and there, but from the Ministry of Education in the curriculum that is put in place for the schools. Because I agree also with Baptiste and what has been said in the hall that there is lack of awareness and of knowledge, but in the meantime, there is eagerness in going back to the heritage. And exactly, I saw a lot of students going to Mosul Heritage or to Beitna, the other city in the other center in Mosul. They come to the Erbil Citadel very often. And talking with the children, when we do these community outreach activities, we see how they are interested in going back. And the family as well, so at every level. One of our colleagues is an architect from the Hawk University, but he's also a musician. And there are a lot of young people working with this organization, and they play together from all over Iraq. So I think that the young generation is very active and eager to go back to forget all these long years, which is not only Daesh, it's not only this, it's the embargo, it's even before. So these long years of troubles in Iraq. So I see this eagerness in doing also artists doing graffiti, in all the kinds of heritage. It is not only the built heritage of Iraq. And this is important for the Mosul Museum project. In fact, there is a big component that is community outreach. So we will really connect the restoration of the museum as heritage of Iraq, historic heritage, but also modern heritage of Iraq, modern art of Iraq. So really to reconnect it to the city of Mosul, to the country of to Iraq.
Thank you, Alexandria. If you could just focus on the part where cultural recovery is important in your work, in terms of people's lives.
There was a moment in the video this morning that we all saw with the elder Iraqi gentleman talking about how meaningful the minaret was to him. And he spoke about the communities, how they all used to celebrate together. That's key. That's key to recovery. That's key to cultural heritage, is the memory that we were a nation together. We were neighbors who feasted together. We were neighbors who took care of each other's needs during a fast. We were neighbors who loved one another, which is also true in Palestine pre-partition. And I think that needs to be part of what the children learn, Alessandra. That piece, and that is a piece that people outside Iraq need to learn as well. Because and listen, I'm an American of Iraqi descent. You know how much shame I carry with knowing what my country did to my dad's country? Haram. We need to know about those civilizations, be reminded, so we can step up and do something about it. And I don't know how much foreign intervention anyone's interested in anymore. Frankly, we could talk about that separately.
Thank you, Anisa. And if we can learn from some of your examples in Iraqi Kurdistan, on education, on raising awareness and its importance.
في الحقيقة هناك بشكل عام الوعي حول الآثار والتراث ليس على مستوى مطلوب، وخاصة من قبل الأهالي في القرى والأرياف. وسبب وعدم وزع الحكومات يعني التراث والآثار في برنامج التربية، يعني هذا سبب، وهذا يعني من أهم الأسباب. سبب يعني جدي يعني في التوعية. وأيضا هناك أسباب أخرى البطالة والفقر وكثرة عدد المواقع الأثرية والتراثية وأكثريتها يعني ملكية خاصة ولم يتم معالجتها من قبل الحكومة أو استملاكها أو تعويضهم مما أدى وعدم مشاركة القطاع الخاص ولم يكن الآثار والتراث يعني مصدرا للدخل للناس. يعني هذا سبب كل هذه الأسباب تحديات ويجب في المستقبل يعني نحاول في مشاركة القطاع الخاص والناس يعني بأن يكون الآثار والتراث مركز دخل وفرص للعمل بهذا يعني يؤدي إلى قلة التحديات وأن يهتم المجتمع بالآثار والتراث وأن نربي الأجيال القادمة بوعي الآثار والتراث وأن يشرح لهم وأن يفهمهم بأن الآثار والتراث يعني شيء مهم ويجب المحافظة عليه.
I would like to quickly answer Ra'id's question. And his question was on how our project selected and why is the Ahwar, which is southern Iraq, neglected. My answer to that is speak to Maya there and speak to ALIPH because none of us are really funders here. So we would like to take just 2 more questions and then we'll have a 1 minute each on going forward in terms of our plans. Are there any other questions? Yes, go ahead. If you can quickly, very shortly ask your question. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My name is Rand Abdel-Jabbar, Iraqi artist, engaging with kind of heritage. I had a lot of questions about education that I think we've addressed, but my question is, there's a lot of attention on renovating, conserving certain buildings, but I was curious about any sort of plans that you've put in place for long-term security of the site. We've seen many instances where buildings were, let's say, renovated or conserved and then attacked once again, so I was wondering kind of what sort of long-term plans you have in place for security.
Thank you, Randa. That's noted. Are there any questions on this side? Okay, go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Anjana. I'm a journalist from The National. My question is, if any of the panelists could answer on, how much is opening up tourism to Iraq has changed and will help in promoting these projects that various organizations are restoring or the restorations are completed. What role can tourism play in helping promote it?
One more question.
Very quickly about the marches, just to note that ALIPH has actually a project has done a project with Safina about the heritage of the marches, and we, Valerie, Maya, and I were in the marches less than a month ago because we are assessing this potential. So from our side as a donor, we are trying to explore this area, and it is actually very important and a very important area that needs to be assessed.
Thank you, David. I'm going to answer the questions. I'll answer them, but one more question? One last question. Professor Nada Shabot.
Sorry, I should have asked it earlier. Thank you, everyone, for everything. But, the question has to do with where does the modern heritage fall in this? Everyone talks about renovating old buildings, which is great, of course. We want the heritage, we want the mosques, we want the things that are 100 years old, and we want the marshes, and we want Mosul. But what about modern art? What about 20th century? Thanks.
Thank you, noted. So, if we can start, Alessandra. And it will be any of the questions you can answer. Yeah.
Yes. First one, third question.
We have
I
literally
start with
2 minutes left.
Yes,
Yep.
I go quickly. Actually, the Mosul Museum is one of the major buildings of Iraq, of modernist Iraq, is Mohammed Makia building. So this is an example of restoration of modern building, and it wants to be a restoration of modernism is difficult all over the world, and not only. Recently, the stadium in India has been affected by, it will be destroyed because they cannot repair. So I think the restoration of other buildings are like this. But in this case, we want really to give an example with ALIPH, the Louvre and the Smithsonian, that modern heritage can be restored and can be reevaluated and rehabilitated. So we are restoring modern heritage. And in this case, we really want to attach the restoration of this building to art. And trying really to put back artists, often Iraqi artists that are outside of the country, coming back and doing things in Iraq for the Iraqi artists that lost also good knowledge of art. Because I know various artists outside of Iraq or historians outside of Iraq, so this is a discussion that we put on the table. And for security is a more difficult question because at the political level, so it's more difficult for us to answer, I suppose. I hope it was really a very exceptional moment what happened with Daesh and this distraction. So I hope it will not be repeated very soon.
Alessandro, just
anyway,
quickly in brief form, one of the questions from the audience was success stories. Just 5 seconds, 10 seconds in terms of bullet point success stories.
Me?
Yeah.
Well, 5 seconds. A lot of these stories they are all success story in a way, and I think all of us are having a project that are a success story in a way, and also what Nahrain is doing, and educating again young scholars and giving them the opportunity to go outside of Iraq and doing masters and PhD, and I know some of them that they got the grant. So I think all these are little success story. Even if you have 10 person in a training course and then 2 of them are able to do a PhD whenever, or they become professors. All this is a success story, I think. And
Baptiste, if you would like to answer any of the questions, and also anything regarding success stories,
The success story, the first thing that comes to my mind is just some friends and especially young friends that we have in Mosul that we met. I was mentioning the Mosul Heritage House. I'm thinking also about CAF Lab, about the book forum in Mosul. These are young people that had made very important, significant initiatives regarding culture and heritage in the last 3 years. What they are doing is really impressive, and I'm amazed. I'm thinking about this is a real success story, and it's still ongoing.
Thank you. Anisa?
Given how short a time it takes to destroy and how long a time it takes to rebuild, I think everything we've heard up here is a success story. That is even underway, that there is an ALIPH that's interested in funding. I think that one of the things that we're doing in the intangible area, looking how intangible and tangible come together, especially with the ecology, is we're trying to rebuild a farm in Shingal that will feed hundreds of families that can come back, and people are coming back to the Yazidi community. They are coming back to Mosul. These are success stories, and we have to be patient, and it's hard to be patient.
If I can add a small thing, is the entrepreneurship that I saw from the young generation of Iraq is really nice to see.
And of course, 70% of Iraq's population is under 30. So huge potential
so it's
there.
Very interesting to see this.
On that note, also
moving.
in terms of tourism, there's also a growing amount of Iraqi, as in Iraqi tourism, internal tourism, and that has potential for local employment and generation and development.
And lots of people like to go to Kurdistan because it's cooler and you can hike in the mountains, which are beautiful. And we're building a trail there, the Kurdistan, the Zagros Mountain Trail.
نحن في إدارة آثار وحماية إقليم كردستان لم نجلس مكتوفي أيدي، بل نحن نحن مستمرين على حماية وصيانة الآثار والتراث في كافة المجالات، وأيضا يعني في مجال الوعي المجتمعي، سواء كان من خلال مديرياتنا أو من خلال بالتعاون مع البعثات الأجنبية الموجودة في إقليم كردستان. وأني عندي برزنتيشن إذا أكو مجال حتى أقدمها ونبين أعمال الصيانة والترميم والتنقيبات الإنقاذية التي جرت السنة الماضية. خلال السنة الماضية تقريبا 70 مشروع آثاري أجريت في إقليم كردستان من حيث الصيانة والترميم وأيضا التنقيبات الإنقاذية، كلها يعني جرت يعني من قبل الاختصاصيين الآثاريين في إقليم كردستان. وهذا يعني تطور نوعي في مجال الآثار والتراث في الآونة الأخيرة، وهذا بدعم من حكومة إقليم كردستان ووضع مسألة الآثار والتراث في مقدمة برنامجها. ونحن في الإدارة الآثار والتراث أيضا يعني مستمرين في هذا المجال، ونطلب أيضا يد العون من الجميع سواء كان في خارج القطر أو في داخل القطر، والعمل معا في هذا المجال الإنساني المهم.
I would just like to personally answer one of the questions that wasn't answered, and that's on security on sites. I would contend that international organizations, global organizations, are not substitutes for the state, and can never be substitutes for a state that you're working in. And the onuses and the responsibilities on state institutions to facilitate support, protect cultural heritage. And so the question you've asked, Randa, is a very complex one that involves security services, politics, and state building. Also, I would like to underline in terms of summarizing some of the key points, raising awareness has always been something on top of the agenda. And I think increasingly this will be important for funding organizations as they complete projects and also post-project development in terms of engaging with communities. Obviously, that's something that people do, operators do during the process of project implementation. The other point on modern art, I think that's a neglected area, a hugely neglected area, and needs to be supported, needs to be addressed, because that is Iraq's national identity, embodied in its cultural heritage, in its modern production. In terms of tourism, there's huge amounts of potential in Iraq, Iraqi Kurdistan, but across the board, in Nahwar, in Nineveh, in Babel, of course, one of the key sites in the world, potentially Babylon becoming a World Heritage, it is a World Heritage Site as of 2019. But of course, we all know tourism needs an infrastructure and it needs a functioning, stable state. So I'd like to thank you again, Baptiste, Alexandra, Anisa, Kaifi, to our panelists, to ALIPH, to everyone here. We can, of course, continue our conversation outside this hall, and I do think one of the key points is knowledge exchange between partners and between friends that has to continue beyond this conference. It has to continue in ways that can strengthen our partnerships, because we're one of the few people working in this field in a context of massive degradation of cultural heritage across the Middle East. So I thank you again, and I thank Maya and ALIPH for inviting me to chair this panel. Thank you very much.
Just housekeeping information now. After this Majlis, we have to get outside in front of the fountain, because this is the gathering point for the visit we are going to have. So it's outside of the building, next to the fountain. This is the gathering point now.